Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day six. Welcome to day six of our 30-day Business Growth Action Plan Challenge. I hope that you found the first week to be very informative, and this is the week where we ramp things up a bit. This is a week where we're going to be setting the goals. Funny enough, this morning I read a newsletter that someone wrote on LinkedIn. And one of the things he was talking about is the reason why executives or leaders shy away from strategic planning. And one of the things that he shared is when you plan, you're basically setting an hypothesis. And sometimes we don't want to be wrong. We want to be sure of the results that we're generating. And sometimes the planning can get aside, go to the side because you want to be in the doing. Because when you're doing something, you're generating results. So today, we're going to be talking about how do you measure those results? How do you know if your effort is producing the result that you have in this hypothesis statement? Because that is what your strategic plan really is. It's an hypothesis statement. And today we're talking about KPIs. We're talking about selecting the right KPIs and some of the KPIs that you can think of monitoring for your business. So if you're joining for the first time, I'm Michelle O'Connor, your business growth strategist, and we are working on ensuring that we have our business plan, our business action growth plan ready before the holidays so you can step into 2026 knowing what goals you're going to be focusing on. So let's have a conversation about KPIs. Now, we are talking about how do you track the right KPIs for your business growth. I know when I work with persons, I sometimes ask the question, how did you perform? Or what were some of the results that you generated? And they don't know. It's almost as if some of us were running our business with an idea about how we're performing, maybe because we can pay the bills. But I'm going to be talking to you about how tracking the right KPI can put you ahead of the game so you know what is working, what is not working, right? So why is it important? KPI is important because it keeps you focused. It helps you to know when you need to course correct. So I remember when I was in corporate, one of the things we did was we had a monthly revenue meeting. It was just about revenue. You had a meeting just about expenses. Why is that important? That is important because when you're able to track and see how you are performing, you can have conversations. So we're going to be talking about some examples of KPIs that you can use, and it's going to help you to measure. The first thing I want you to remember is that there are two types of KPIs. You have your lead. So your KPI, if you're new to it, is your key performance indicator. This is the indicator that tells you if you're on track or if you are off track. Now you have two types. You have the lead indicator. This is the one that you're able to monitor before the results are generated. So if you're seeking to grow your revenue, there are indicators that you can track that can give you an idea whether or not you're on track or off track in meeting that revenue target. And then you have your lag indicator. So we're going to be going into those two, and then we're going to be giving some examples of why is it important for you to have maybe two or three, or maybe three, let's say 3 to 5, but don't have a lot of KPIs that you're monitoring, right? So I know for many founders or CEOs, we are tracking our lag, but I want to have a conversation with you about your lead indicator. So when you think about lead indicator, this is the one that's predictive. This is the one that tells you, it tells me in advance whether or not I am going to be able to achieve the goal that I set. So before I go into a business example, we can talk about weight. If you have a weight goal, whether or not that could be you're looking to gain weight or you're looking to lose weight, the scale is one thing, but there are things that you can track before you go on the scale that would give you an indication as to whether or not you're going to be achieving your goal. Let me know if you're understanding and if this is making sense. You can go ahead and drop a comment in the chat. So examples of that, as a business consultant, for me, one of the things that I track is the number of calls that I have booked for the week. So I know if I have X number of calls booked, that is an indication that the revenue target that I have set for the end of the month will be met or will not be met. If there are no calls booked, I probably need to go back and look back at my strategy. I need to go back and look at what are the activities I'm engaging in, because I already know if I do not have these calls booked, then the revenue target is not going to be met. So that is something that you can use. An example, if you are a doctor, what are the number of patients queries that you've received? Those are things that are leading, because if persons are asking about your service, if persons are asking about the products that you have to offer, that's an indication that they are interested, and you may have a formula that you're working with. Think about persons who do masterclass. They have a formula that they work with. If they have, I don't know the formula, I'm giving an example. If they have 500 persons register, well, this one I do know. Whatever event you're having, the number of persons who register online, 10% is going to show up. Of the number of persons who show up, another percent of persons will maybe decide to buy your product or your service. So knowing that, it means your end result is to have them on board or see you as their desired service provider. So if you know only 1% of the persons are going to buy, it means you need to have X number of persons registered. You can type in the chat and tell me if that's making sense for you. So that is the number of persons registered is a lead indicator, giving you an indication as to how many persons you have potentially in attendance and in how many persons you'll be able to sell to. So I hope this is making sense for you. Another thing that you can check is number of proposal that you send. So maybe say you're a lawyer, or you're in some kind of service, you're providing service, you're a real estate broker. What are the number of calls that you've had? What are the number of proposals that you've made to potential home buyers or home sellers? And you have a number that you need to meet each week or each month. That is the conversation that you're having with yourself or your team, and those are the numbers that you're tracking. Sometimes we're tracking the wrong KPIs. We are just focused on revenue, but there's something that happens before the revenue is generated, where if we're tracking those numbers, we're able to course correct if needed, and then you don't have to worry about the results in the end, because you know it will come because you were doing what you needed to do leading up to the before the results. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and if this is something, what KPIs are you tracking for your business? I can also think, we're talking about lead indicators. So I'm thinking about, maybe you have a co-work space. How many tours have you given to maybe corporates, or persons looking to book a meeting room, or persons looking to rent the space? That is something else that you can think of. That is giving you an indication as to whether or not you will meet the occupancy rate that you are targeting at the end of the month. We're talking about KPIs. The thing is, when we just go about our days without looking back at the thing that will indicate whether or not we're on target, that is where we get burnout and overwhelm. And that's what we're trying to prevent here. We're going to be talking about goals and setting up those goals tomorrow, but I want to have the KPI conversation so you can start thinking and knowing, was I tracking the right KPI, and which KPI do I need to be tracking? So drop the comment in the chat or ask questions if you need to. There are other things that you can be looking at. You can look at social media engagement, depending on the type of business that you have. Your hits on your website, maybe you're selling a product, and because you're selling the product, you want to be able to see how many persons are going on your website. When you are able to do that, that can also give you an indication. We're getting a lot of hits, we're getting a lot of queries, but it's something that happens. Think of your lead indicator as something that happens before the sale, something that happens before you generate the revenue, before you reduce the expense. Those are some of the things that you think of. Now, let's talk about the one that a lot of us tend to track, and that is our lag indicator. Now, the lag indicator, it's more reactive. You really can't do anything about it after you've generated the result within the period. So let's take revenue as an example. If you were to generate $100,000 in revenue by the end of the month, at the end of the month, the revenue is what it is. You can't do anything about it. But and that's a lag indicator. If you were to generate $100,000 in revenue and you needed to have 5 sales calls booked in your calendar per week, the first week, if you don't have it, you can know, okay, if I don't get 10 next week, we're in trouble. You can do something different. Maybe I need to reach out to more people. So your lag would be your revenue. So revenue is one that I know we track a lot. For co-work space, because I gave an example, you can look at your occupancy rate. What is the occupancy rate that I have? That can tell me, okay, if I'm supposed to be at 60, am I at 60? You can't do anything about it, but you can do something about the queries that you get. If you're not getting queries, maybe you need to ramp up your marketing. So looking at the KPIs help you to make those decisions. Lag indicator, again, your customer service, your customer satisfaction score. If your score is low, that's an indication that your customers aren't satisfied. However, they already got the service and they're already dissatisfied. You can't do anything to change it, but it's now the result to show you whether or not the things that you're doing is working. So both are needed. It's just that both of them play a different role. You may track your lag indicators less frequently than you do your lead indicators. So I suggest for you that you select maybe 3 to 5 KPIs and ensure that you're tracking the right KPIs, guys. Sometimes I found that a lot of persons are at revenue. Let me look at just my revenue. But there are a lot of things that happens before the revenue that can let you know whether or not you're on track or you're off track. So some things that I want you to remember: ensure that you select a KPI that you're able to measure. Don't select one that you cannot track on your own or your team cannot track as a CEO and a founder. You need to be able to track it. I find organizations do this a lot. We have this laundry list of KPIs and we don't have systems in place nor processes in place to track and give us the results. So ensure you're selecting a KPI that you're able to track and measure. Have a process or a system in place. Create a KPI dashboard. And when I say a KPI dashboard, it's really a table that allows you to see, one, what the KPI is. If the KPI is revenue, if it's a lead indicator, number of sales call, you have your KPI. I then want you to show your frequency. How often are we going to be monitoring this KPI? So whether you're monitoring it on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. And then in the next column, you want to say who is the owner, who owns this. Ownership is a very big deal in ensuring that you're achieving the goals that you set out to achieve. If you have no owner, it's just in thin air and nobody's doing it, and you go in the meeting and everybody's looking around at each other, but you want to ensure that somebody owns it. Somebody knows what result is going to be generating, and the person who owns it, they're monitoring and they're able to give you updates as to where you are. You want to have a monitoring process. So earlier shared, we have monthly revenue meetings, we have monthly expense meetings. What is the process for monitoring the performance? Am I going to use my CEO days once per week and sit and review my KPIs? Or what does it look like? Have something, guys. I keep saying this, that we see large organizations and we believe that they become, it's because they're large or they have executives. No, they have processes in place that helps them to move the needle forward. Right? So must do's at the end. Any question, please put your questions in the chat. Select 3 to 5 KPIs. Keep it simple and be consistent. I was talking to someone the other day, and one of the things that they shared with me is Mr. Beast. Maybe you don't know him. If you do, you can. If you don't, you can Google him. But Mr. Beast, when he was building his social media platform, he was tracking one KPI. How many persons do I have viewing this thing that I'm producing? And if you're growing, then that's all I need to check. I just need to check to see if persons are coming on. Have the KPIs that if I ask yourself this question: if I am able to monitor this one thing, will I be able to know if I am on track to achieving my goal? And that's a KPI that you want to select. And you don't have to select a lot. You're in real estate, you might be tracking commission. But outside of commission, one of the things you want to track is, okay, how many persons am I meeting with on a weekly basis? One of the things that someone I worked with did was he tracked also the number of times he touches his current client base, past and present, whether or not he made a proposal to them or not, because he was able to see that most of the home transactions that he was doing were from repeat customers. So it means if I continue to engage, if I continue to have conversations with them, I have a very good opportunity for them to refer me to somebody else or to use me for their next home purchase. So think about that is what, when you have the numbers, you're able to look at it and you're able to analyze and you're able to see if the hypothesis that you select is working. And that is what we're going to be doing tomorrow. We are going to be saying, this is the goal that we're going after, and this is how we're going to measure and test whether or not this is working. I hope this is making sense for you guys, and I hope you're finding value. Go ahead and ask your questions if needs be, but select the right KPIs. We'll continue this conversation some more, I think, on Wednesday, because tomorrow what we're working on is selecting the goal or your goals for 2026. And then we're going to be breaking down those goals and identifying how we're going to be measuring them. But I want you to start thinking about it. What can I currently track outside of revenue? We want to track leading up to revenue and monitoring those on a weekly basis. Well, we'll work through that some more. I hope this helped you, and go ahead and ask any questions that you have, even if you're watching the replay. But selecting your KPI is one thing that's going to set you up for success. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming on. Have a wonderful day. Bye.